Hi, everyone. Welcome to our series for getAbstract, Understanding People. My name is Kirsten Müller-Daubermann, and I am your host. So if you've been with us throughout this series of episodes, you know that we are diving into the issues of interpersonal communication, exploring why we misunderstand each other, and bringing on a variety of different experts and authors to help us learn how to connect with each other better. In this episode, we are going to talk about the preponderance of Google knowing and how things like that and just information overload can create some really significant barriers to understanding each other and different perspectives and how to combat that. So my guest for today is Michael Patrick Lynch. He is the Board of Trustees Distinguished Professor of Philosophy at the University of Connecticut. He is the Director of the Humanities Institute and Director of the New England Humanities Consortium. His work concerns truth, democracy, public discourse, and the ethics of technology. Lynch's newest book is Know-It-All Society, Truth and Arrogance in Political Culture. Not relevant at all, obviously. His other books include The Internet of Us, Knowing More and Understanding Less in the Age of Big Data, In Praise of Reason, Why Rationality Matters for Democracy, Truth as One and Many, and the New York Times Sunday Book Review Editor's Pick, True to Life. So, Professor Lynch, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so first of all, let's start with the basics. As a philosopher, simple question, probably not a simple answer. What is knowledge?
To know something, either about the world or about another person, is to have a view about it that is justified or based in some evidence, and of course also happens to be accurate, because you don't really know something as opposed to thinking you know something if you aren't actually right about it. So to really know that the butler did it is for the butler to have actually done it, and for you to have some evidence that the butler did his dastardly deed in the library with the candlestick or what have you. So knowledge, to put it bluntly in terms that Plato first pitched to us, is justified true belief.
Justified true belief. Okay. And then break it down. What's the difference between knowledge and understanding?
I think when we talk about knowledge being justified true belief, that is, being opinions that are accurate, that are grounded on good, solid information, that can itself come in a variety of different forms. And one of the forms that knowledge can come in is the form that we might call understanding, which is a more important form of knowledge in many, many respects. To understand a topic or understand why something happened, like why a disease has spread so much, or to understand a person, why, for example, they're depressed, is more than simply knowing some facts, more than just simply having evidence and having accurate opinions. That's all super important, of course. It's also seeing the relationship. To understand something is to see the relationship between different aspects of the phenomena that you're understanding, to see how it all fits together. So if you're trying to understand, in the case of a friend, why they might be feeling depressed, it's more than just simply knowing some facts about their behavior. It's also knowing how their emotional state is related to that behavior, how their upbringing might actually have impacted why they're feeling this way, and so on and so forth. And similarly, for when we're understanding complex things like the spread or causes of a disease and in relation to the pandemic. For experts to understand those things is to see how the little bits of information that they know fit into the big picture, and how the big picture affects those individual nodes on the knowledge network.
I love that. And thank you for starting very simple with us and breaking it down, because it's going to be the foundation of what we're going to talk about that next. And that is something you discuss at length in your book, The Internet of Us, and that is Google knowing. and how we have all of the information at the world at our fingertips, this common brain, so to speak, or network of knowledge. A lot of people think that's an amazing thing, but why can it also be extremely dangerous, not just for the health of the individual, but the health of society?
Right. Well, Google knowing is an amazing thing. I call what I call Google knowing is the way that most of us know a lot of the socially relevant information that we know about the world. To Google know is not just to use Google as a search engine, although we both know that that is the most dominant one, but Google knowing is the process of using digitally based platforms in order to come to learn information about the world. And we actually Google know, in relation to what I said earlier, when we get the right information. But we often think we're Google knowing, that is, learning new information that's accurate, when actually we're just acquiring misinformation. But Google knowing, as I said, is super important. Nobody is going to deny that. I'm old enough to remember what it was like to look for information on the internet before the algorithms that Google has supplied us with. We were able to sort through the information that's out there and give us just the information that we really want and need. It used to be that you would use search platforms. I won't mention some of them, but people can use their own examples that would give us just jumbles of information, would actually give us just heaps of different things. We'd be searching for a particular book and we'd get all sorts of things, from television shows to random blogs that mention that book. The internet doesn't work like that anymore. And that's a great thing because, and this is perhaps the most important thing to know about Google knowing, because Google knowing is personalized.
Yeah.
Google knowing is a way of accessing information that is made possible through techniques of mathematical analysis, algorithms, that sort through the sorts of track that we and people like us have left in the digital sphere, that trail of ones and zeros that we all leave by carrying our phones around, and delivers us just that information that we want. Practically everything that we encounter on the internet is personalized now, from the news that comes down your Facebook feed, to the advertisements that you read on the newspaper sites that you visit. All of that is tailored to fit each of your preferences as an individual. And that's fantastic when you are shopping for books or shoes or what movies to watch. It's not so great when you're shopping for facts. Because if you're just getting the facts, and I obviously use scare quotes for a reason, that is fit to your personal preferences, if you're just getting the information that fits to your preferences, to your desires, to your biases, to your prejudices, that's not a recipe for bursting your bubble. It's a recipe for inflating it. And that's the unfortunate relationship between the miracle of Google knowing and the polarization that we see so much today.
Absolutely. And you make the connection really well, how knowledge, or even just looking up facts on the internet, is not the same as understanding, because algorithmically your results are programmed to confirm your existing beliefs and biases. And we even see this with the way that social networks are set up, which has put us into these information silos. And we seem to have reached peak polarization at this point, not only in the United States. Obviously, getAbstract is based in Switzerland. I'm located here in Switzerland. We're seeing this throughout Europe as well, and all over the globe where the internet is present. You see this phenomenon, and that leads to this danger. And I love how you talk about in the book, in the Internet of Us, about losing the foundation of knowledge, this idea that we share a common reality. If we don't have that, society, trying to understand another person becomes almost completely impossible. Where do we stand in your view? Have you seen polarization increase over your lifetime? Are we at a breaking point? How do we even start to get out of this place where we're bunkered into such information silos that we seemingly, because of algorithms, can't get out of.
Well, I think that there's no doubt that, as many commentators have been pointing out, that polarization in several different senses has dramatically increased in the last decade and a half, particularly in the last decade. Now, polarization, as I said, comes in a lot of different forms, and it's important to sort of think about what we mean by that. So people can become polarized over things like issues. That just means that they disagree strongly about certain issues. And obviously, polarization and disagreement over issues is alive and well across the globe.
Makes
Of course, that's not new, right? That's not new, right? People, as long as there have been people, right? There's people that disagree with each other. And in a democracy, that's a healthy thing, actually. Disagreement is healthy in a democracy. What is, I think, more disturbing and newer is the fact that many people who actually, according to a lot of research being done by Pew and a variety of political scientists around the globe, a lot of folks who would otherwise actually agree on a lot of issues, not all issues, but a lot of different issues on policy issues, are polarized in a different way. They're polarized in their attitudes towards each other. Mm-hmm. That is, they've come to regard the other, those in the other party, for example, as being not just wrong on the issues, but deeply misinformed, deeply perhaps dishonest, immoral, and just simply a threat to either democracy or our way of life or what have you. And it's that sort of emotional, attitudinal polarization, these feelings of strong disquiet and distrust about the other side, that is really a problem. And it's what is connected to what you were talking about, this lack of agreement on a common ground, and indeed even a set of common facts.
Yeah,
we are right now at this point, right, where we're not just disagreeing over values, we're not just disagreeing over facts, we're even disagreeing over how to count what a fact is.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
And so that's bad, I think. And you asked how we could. That's bad, it's grave, and it's getting worse. And we're not at peak, I think, unfortunately. And I can talk about that if you'd like. But
yeah, yes, please do.
We're not at peak yet. It could get worse. And that's why it's so important to ask the question that you asked a moment ago. How can we figure out ways to claw ourselves out of this hole that we're increasingly finding ourselves in, not just in the United States, but throughout the globe?
Yeah. And so let's talk about you. I mean, in addition to all of your great books, which everyone should read, and the Internet of Us is in the getAbstract library if you want to check it out, and then you should buy the book, as well as his new book, which we're going to talk about at the end, so stay tuned. But you also have done a fabulous TED Talk where you talk about different ways that people can more actively know. And so I would love for you to talk a little bit about that as something that, in a way, to kind of start to get out of these silos of information that we may be in. How does someone start questioning themselves or discover ways to more actively know and understand the world around them, and get out of just the facts and figures that they see on the internet or the interaction that they're having with someone in a Facebook comment thread? What are some ways that people can more actively know and understand the world, the policies that exist in their neighborhood, community, their family, what's happening? How do people know?
Okay, so the first thing to tell all of ourselves is that we need to work at this at two levels. We need to first think of it as an institutional problem. We need to support institutions that are willing to work towards positive change and bridge these sort of divides. And those include institutions that might be familiar to you, that is, certain types of educational institutions like universities, but also things like museums, including your local museums, your local art institutions. Art and history are amazing avenues towards reaching an understanding, not just a list of facts. If you're interested in understanding, let's say, how we got to where we are in the United States with regard to issues like race, your local museums and your both art museums and history museums and the sorts of programs that they use are great ways to both yourself as an individual learn about the world in a way that is not just a sort of list of pre-digested facts that you might find on your social media feed, but are also institutions that deserve some support because of the good work that they're doing. But we also, so that's, we need to think about institutional fixes, and that includes what I just mentioned, but we also need to think about ourselves as individuals and what we can do on an individual basis in our own family to try to bridge some of these divides, or at least be more sensitive to them. And here are a couple things that I think we need to all sort of, work at. One is we need to have a better understanding and be able to explain to other people, including the people that we're friends with, that we're going to see at Thanksgiving, hopefully in a socially distanced and responsible way, how personalized the internet is. The sort of facts that we began chatting about, those are often not widely appreciated. It's not widely appreciated how much all of our social media feeds are dominated by personalization. How much what each of us, we think, for example, when we Google something, that all of us, everybody's going to get the same results to asking the same question. That's not the case. Of course, the sophisticated audience that's listening to this no doubt knows this, but not everybody in your social circle is going to know that. Mm-hmm. And it's important to start teaching those basic facts of media literacy. Those, simple as it sounds, that it can be a sort of revolutionary bit of awareness to people. I've seen people actually just, the scales fall from their eyes when I demonstrate to them that different people can get different results. That's really important. The other thing is to try to set up, if you're going to engage in social media, and I do, try to set up your social media feeds in ways, and Facebook and Twitter and Google have done much better work on this in the last few years. Try to set the filters and the preferences in a way, and each of the platforms will guide you through how to do this, different a little bit on each platform, in such a way such that political information that you might receive, let's say on a news feed, will be coming from a variety of different sources. And then the last sort of thing I think we can do is get out and talk to people. Again, simple thought, and much harder to do than actually to say. It's easy to say that we can go out and talk to people who have views that might be a little different. It's much harder to do, especially as things get more polarized. But one of the things that I've learned is that if you really want to sort of try to open up and understand other people who have different points of view, don't lead with the "why did you vote for blank" question. Lead, if possible, with questions about how are your kids doing? How's this pandemic? How are you holding up? How are you making it? Try to establish some human connection with people. Engage in activities in your community. Again, these are banalities. These are things that sound familiar, but they're much harder to do in real life. And we all have to dedicate ourselves to this sort of work, if on an individual level, if we're going to hope to repair the institutions that we want to repair in order to make democracy flourish.
Yeah, I mean, so many wise words in there. And I will say as well that there's something about art and history and that kind of active knowing and engaging with those institutions that transcends just what we may think we know in our head. And I think what ancient philosophers understood, and people in their gut understand, is that when you Google something or you read an article on the internet, you're only getting one side of the story. There's a head knowledge, but there's also an intuitive knowledge. And you can go back and listen to a previous episode. Actually, in this series, we talked with Gert Gigerenzer from the Max Planck Institute about intuition versus reason and the importance of listening to your intuition. And he's a PhD, so take his word for it, not mine. But that those two parts of both the intellectual and the emotional intelligence are so important. And your last bit, I want you to talk a little bit more about that epistemological humility, like eating our humble pie when you come to these conversations. Because I think what needs to go along with that talking to people is talking to them with an open mind of understanding the viewpoint they're coming from rather than talking to them to get into an argument. Can you talk about like that humble perspective with which
Absolutely. I mean, I think if we're going to rediscover a common ground, a common set of facts, a common set of truths, we're going to need to have the right attitude that we need to bring towards those conversations. And as you say, the word that I think is appropriate here is a intellectual or epistemic humility. Humility about our own worldview. That's absolutely crucial and very difficult to have. To be humble in that way is to be willing to see your own worldview as not perfect, to see it as something that could improve, and particularly improve from the evidence and the experience that other people can bring to the table. To be humble in this way is to, in other words, strive not to be a know-it-all. And I say that from experience because I'm a professional know-it-all, right? So, I mean, to try, write about what you know. And myself, and I think a lot of people want to strive to be somebody who's willing to learn from other people. That's what makes for an effective leader, somebody who's willing to listen to other points of view, to realize that his or her experiences are not the only experiences. But it's also what helps to make us effective human beings, effective in our relationships, and effective as political citizens. One of the things that's really damaging right now throughout my country, the United States, is the prevalence of a type of tribal arrogance, an arrogance that tells people that your side has it all figured out, that that is that side, we know what's right for the country, and they know nothing, worse than nothing. They don't need to be listened to. That's an attitude that's corrosive to democracy. And what we really need to do, both in our personal senses and at the institutional level, is rediscover that Socratic idea that its best wisdom begins with knowing that you don't know very much.
I love that. Wisdom begins with knowing that you don't know very much. Last question for you, Professor. Your most recent book, Know-It-All Society. Can you tell us a little bit about it, the themes you dive into, and where, if people want to read it, where they can go to find it?
Sure. So this book actually begins with that problem that we were just talking about. Know-It-All Society is about the problem of tribal arrogance, what causes it, what it is, and how we can fix it. And so a lot of the things that we've been talking about are really examined in the book. And it's an attempt to try to get to the point that realizing that it's not just in order to fix polarization, we can't just change our beliefs. It's not enough just to get new facts. We've got to change how we view our own beliefs and how we take our attitudes towards knowledge and understanding and the things that we've talked about. You can buy this book everywhere. It's in bookstores near you, and is of course available on the internet, on Amazon, and other booksellers.
Online, cool. And if you search for it online, it will become a part of your algorithm, and you'll find a whole bunch of other great wisdom from Professor Lynch and a whole bunch of things on knowledge. So it's a good thing to search for. If you want to be in an information silo, I'd want to be in that one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Lynch. Thank you for your great work that you're doing and the humble attitude with which you do it. It's very much appreciated. I know I learned a lot, and I hope everyone did here as well. Thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and thank all of you for watching. We'll have another episode of Understanding People coming up soon, so stay tuned to getAbstract's social channels to hear more about our next guest and topic. Of course, if you heard something in here that really impacted you, please share it with your colleagues, with your family, with your friends. This is why we do what we do, and this episode being very important and shareable in all of the right ways. So we hope that you'll take advantage of that. Thank you, wherever the world you're watching us from. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.